but the blood.
Well, good morning. We are so blessed with good weather lately. I was telling the men yesterday that Wednesday night, I think it was Wednesday night, Robin and I were looking at our paper bark maple that we have out in our front yard there, and it's just beautiful. And Wednesday night, fall came. Got up Thursday morning and they all were on the ground right underneath there. I've seen cartoons like that, but I've never seen it happen. But that's what took place. So I was impressed there. I know there's a remote up here. I'd like for you to open your New Testaments to Luke chapter 17. And while you're heading over there, let me welcome you. We have a lot of visitors with us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Both those of you who are here in person, and we also have visitors with us are live streaming on us. We are delighted that you're with us, and thank you for that. This is a great week for us, for families and loved ones to traditionally get together. For many, Thanksgiving is their favorite holiday. I know it's right up there at the top with me. Of course, anything that has to do with food is always a cause for celebration with me. But it's also one of the very few holidays that we have that has such a strong spiritual element, where we turn our hearts and minds toward God in thanks. And we are presently at the end of a 3-lesson series on living a life of thanksgiving. We have had as our goal in this series for us to try to be noticeably less critical and to be measurably more grateful. And so we began. The first lesson was a challenge to stop complaining, and gave you these wristbands to wear that say live thankfully every day. And the idea that I had was if you complained that first week that you would take it off and put it on the other wrist or turn it over. Some had the great idea that the person who caught you complaining could just take it and pull it back like this and pop it. That would be a noticeable reminder to stop complaining. Last week we challenged you to be more open and vocal with our thanksgiving to God for all that He has done for us, and again to use these wristbands that we are living thankfully every day. So this week we want to expand on the idea of expressing our thanks, but moving from a focus on thanking God and thinking about thanking one another. And we're going to be looking at that text. I hope you have it open. We'll look at it a little bit later on in our lesson as we want to start out with laying a little bit of foundation for that. And I want to begin by asking you, what is the best present you have ever given someone else? And when I say the best present, I'm not talking about the biggest present. I'm not talking about the most expensive present or gift. Big and expensive don't take a lot of thought. You just go out and you just spend the money and get some U-Haul truck to bring it in or whatever you're going to do. I mean, this time of year, all the ads, there's cars parked out in front with a big ribbon on top of that, and that would be a big expensive present. But the best kind of present requires us to stop and think about the person that's going to receive that gift, and to shop and scan the internet and try to find just exactly the right gift for them. To spend a lot of time thinking about and considering what would be special for that person. And then, of course, you purchase it and you wrap it. In my case, you have somebody else wrap it because you want it to be attractive. You want people to look at that and say, wow, this is a really nice present. I can wrap meat. I can wrap meat really well. Gifts are a completely different thing. And so as they are opening the presents there, in your presence. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you hoping for? As a reaction from this person as they are opening the gift that you've given so much time and thought and consideration to. I would imagine that you're hoping that they will love it and that they will appreciate the gift as much as they know you love and appreciate them, as that's reflected in that gift. And you're hoping for some reaction, some sort of positive, confirming reaction. Maybe even that they'll, maybe have some tears. Maybe they'll get over and give you a big hug and thank you so much for thinking about them. And maybe they can't even speak. So how do you feel when their reaction is muted? Or maybe even nonchalant? Let me help you by, let's reverse the roles there. Let's say you're the recipient of that thoughtful and sincere and amazing gift. And you open it and you truly and sincerely, you love this gift. You understand how much went into the thought and the heart that went in and how thoughtful it was, how personal it was. And inside you are just filled with gratitude. You're just filled with love. But you never let that show. What might you imagine that other person is feeling that gave you the gift? And how are they thinking? I think it's easy enough for you to put yourself in their shoes. I'll tell you that the default feeling that most people would have to a situation like that is that the recipient is ungrateful. And we know from what I just described for you, from our point of view, we weren't ungrateful. We loved that gift. We were sincerely touched by their thoughtfulness, by their sincerity, and by their generosity. So what's the problem? The problem is that unexpressed gratitude is incomplete gratitude. And the incomplete gratitude is then interpreted as ingratitude. There's a cycle that exists in giving and receiving gifts and blessings from each other. And half of that cycle is the love expressed in the person giving you the gift and loving you enough to bestow that upon you. A quarter of that cycle is the love and appreciation that you feel when you've received it and when you open it. But there's another quarter of that cycle that's not completed until you express your gratitude, till you express your thanksgiving. We need to be measurably more grateful. And that's going to be seen in the phrase that we repeated several times last week, by letting the redeemed of the Lord say so. We express that thanks to one another when we are appreciative of what we have received from one another. So let's go over to Luke chapter 17. And I hope you're already there. This is a familiar story that illustrates, I think, exactly what we're going to discuss this morning. I will tell you that, as I've mentioned to you many times before, the problem with familiar stories in the New Testament is that we just read right through them. And we don't stop and consider what's being said. And so this morning, rather than just read verses 11 through 19 this morning, we're going to walk through this text. And we're going to stop on just about every verse. There's one place where I'm going to give you 2 verses at a time. But I want us to look and understand what's happening here. So let's read verse 11. On the way to Jerusalem, speaking of Jesus, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. So Jesus is on his way toward Jerusalem. This is going to be his final trip to Jerusalem. So this is his final time through this part of the country. And listen, on the border between Galilee and Samaria. That's not a real well-populated, even a popular place to go. It's right there in that circle, and it's just not a place. It's not a go-to destination for recreation. It's actually a place of tension and a place of emptiness. Samaria was a land of half-breeds. And in fact, Jesus is going to call a Samaritan later on in this text a foreigner. So it's not a spiritual necessarily place. So let's look at verse 12. And he entered a village. He was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance. I don't know about you, but I don't think that this is a group the community wants as their greeting committee. The welcome wagon as you're coming into this village is a bunch of lepers. That's not really a welcoming kind of thing. I grew up in Yakima. I don't know that there's a pretty way to get into Yakima. You come in from the south through Union Gap, or you come in through the north and North Yakima, or even from the east. It's just kind of shoddy. It's not welcoming. And and to have 10 lepers standing at the border there and hollering at you is a little bit different. Leprosy is a horrible disease. The Hebrew word here is zara'ath. And that word in Hebrew means smiting or to strike. Because leprosy was viewed as a disease that was providentially inflicted. That you had leprosy because of some fault or guilt in your life, and God struck you with that. That's at the base of this word. Easton's Bible Dictionary, and I have it up here on the screen for you, says of leprosy that it begins with specks on the eyelids and on the palms, gradually spreading over the body, bleaching the hair white wherever they appear, crusting the affected parts with white scales, and causing terrible sores and swellings. From the skin, the disease eats inward to the bones, rotting the whole body piecemeal. It's a horrible disease. And I think that being a leper would be like you were living as a ghost in a community. You were expelled from fellowship of the population, but more specifically of your family and your friends. You're having to live on the fringes of the community. And the hard part about that is that you could still observe them from afar. You could still feel what they were feeling, but you can witness their life, but you never got to live it again. You could never share wholeheartedly as a full participant in that. And in fact, if someone's coming near you, you had to cover your mouth, and you had to shout out to people that you're unclean and announce that you're a leper so they would stay away from you. And all of this time, you know that this disease is slowly and painfully killing you. And true to the insistence of the law, they are standing at a distance. Let's read verse 13. And lifted up their voices, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. So they're far enough away that in order to be heard, they have to use their outside voices. They have to shout to communicate with him. And they didn't shout out the normal message that they would have given, which is unclean, unclean, to make sure people stayed away. No, the message that they shouted out was Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. Apparently this is one who they believe can heal them. Perhaps they've heard of Jesus. They've heard of him healing other people, maybe even healing other people with leprosy. And the point here is, and the side point that I want us to make, they expressed that desire. They didn't expect Jesus to read their minds. They called out to him and asked him, begged him, Master, have mercy on us. Verse 14. When he saw them, he said to them, Go and show yourselves to the priests. And as they went, they were cleansed. So when he saw them, and we're not told here, but I think I can assume that Jesus felt exactly the same way he always felt when he saw any of his creation suffering. He had compassion on them. He saw them covered with this disease. And he said to them, Go. Now listen, if that was all that he said to them, that wouldn't have been anything different than probably what they have heard ever since they got this disease, which is go away. Go away from me, go away from us, go live in your isolation. We don't want you around us, go. But that's not what Jesus said. He said, Go show yourselves to the priests. Listen, that is a message of hope. Because it was the priests who declared you unclean and that you had leprosy, and it's also the priests who could declare that you are healed and that you are clean. They alone could free you from the exile that was imposed on you because you had this disease. They could declare you to be clean and to free you up to live your life again. Listen, if they're standing there, if there's lepers are standing there and Jesus said, Go, show yourselves to the priests. If they're standing there and they're looking at their skin, they still have leprosy. The leprosy is still there. Jesus is actually literally asking them to walk by faith. Take that step. Start going towards the priest. To go show yourselves to the priest. And it says that as they went, it's like Naaman in 2 Kings 5. He's told to dip 7 times. He wasn't healed on time number 4. Number 6 was on time number 7 that he came up and his skin was like that of a baby. And so we read here that as they went, they were cleansed. Can you imagine that? You've got leprosy, and if the priest is over here, every time you take a step, it starts disappearing. It starts going away. You start being healed with everything. Did you start picking up your pace? Do you start running a little bit so the healing can be that much faster? Imagine what it was like to have your life given back to you, to be able to now go back to work with your body and with your hands, and to be able to be with family and to hold them and hug them and to just hang around them. To move in and out of the community and to buy and sell and work. And we read that they were cleansed. Again, I think we just read through that. They were cleansed, blah, blah, blah. Let's go on. Think about that. Think about how their lives have been changed completely. Changed for the better. The hope that they now have. The confidence that they now have. Let's read verse 15. Then one of them, when he saw that he was healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice. So one of them, when he saw that he was healed, he'd had this disease. I don't know how long he'd had it. He had it for a while. And now it's gone. No more leprosy. And he realized that he was healed. And so what did he do? We read that he turned back. He can't go any further on this journey to the priest. He needs to go back. He feels compelled to return. And on the way we read that he is praising God with a loud voice. Listen, what I'm seeing here is a person who appreciated what he received. And he's expressing it. He knows it is by the power of God that he has been healed. There's a song that we're going to sing this Wednesday called Blessed Be Your Name. And in the chorus it says, every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And that's what he's doing. That's what he did, what we talked about last week. He let the redeemed of the Lord say so. When you're thankful, when you appreciate what God's given you, tell him. Express it. Say it out loud. He's saying it out loud. He's saying it with a loud voice. Let's read verse 16. And he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. So he fell at Jesus' feet. Came and fell at Jesus' feet. So he didn't just stop and say a silent prayer of thanks. He returned to Jesus. And he doesn't have to be at a distance anymore. He falls at his feet, on his face, right there, and he does what needed to be done. He gave him thanks. He gave him thanks. So simple. But the cycle has been completed. And now Luke adds another comment here that he felt was important, and that he was a Samaritan. This one who praised God, this one who fell at Jesus' feet and is thanking him, this is significant to Luke. And I think that we need to appreciate that this person is on a whole different level of isolation than maybe we appreciate. You recall that we read in John the 4th chapter and verse 9. I'll get back there again. I'm way ahead of myself. There, one more. There we go. The Samaritan woman said to him, speaking to Jesus, the woman by the well, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? And the writer of the gospel said, for Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. What that means is that this Samaritan leper is a double outsider. He's an outsider because he's a Samaritan. He's an outsider because he's got leprosy. He's a double outsider. He's doubly isolated. Tell you what that tells me is that the one who's the most separated is the one who expresses the greatest gratitude. It's like Jesus said, who's going to love this master more? The one who forgave him a lot or forgave him a little? Hold on to your seats. We're taking two verses now, verse 17 and 18. Then Jesus answered, were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner? Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? The only person that's come back to give God thanks is this foreigner. Listen, I can't answer that question. I don't know where they are. I don't know where these other 9 guys are. But I'm guessing that if you were able to track them down and you were to ask them, aren't you grateful for your healing? That without exception, they would answer, of course we are grateful. We have never been more thankful in our lives for this amazing blessing. But they stopped at that feeling. They stopped without expressing it. And it was only this foreigner. What did I say foreigner for? That's like a person that plays for the Seattle baseball team that lives out of town. Foreigner. Sorry about that. There's only this foreigner. He's the only one that completed this cycle of grace and gratitude. He's the only one. Was given the gift, felt the gratitude in his heart, and then came and expressed it. And then finally, verse 19. And he said to him, Jesus said to the Samaritan, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." Rise and go. So he's told again to leave, to go away as Jesus did. But this time when he goes, he's already healed. He's already received the blessing. And Jesus tells him to realize that the reason you were healed was because of your faith. And I think that we need to also realize that Jesus also went on his way to Jerusalem, on his way to the cross, and on his way to the cross to provide a different kind of cleansing that we receive, that we just remembered a few moments ago. As I will tell you that the story of the Samaritan is our story. We ourselves were among the dead, separated from God, strangers from the hope and the promises and the covenant of God. And Jesus came, and he came to us, into our lives where no one else would go, no one else could go. And he came to seek us and to save us and to heal us and to make us alive again. See, that's the foundation. That is the reason for living a life of thanksgiving. Because Jesus, Master, the Son of God, had mercy on us. This is a story that tells us also a couple of other things about a life of thanksgiving. And the first one I think is the most important of the two I want to share with you, and that is expression, not emotion, is the measure of thanksgiving. You want your gratitude to be measurable, more measurable. It's not the emotion that you have over what you've received, it's the expression of your gratitude that is the measure of your thankfulness. That's what makes it measurable, so that it can be expressed. We don't want to be like the 9 who may have felt exactly the same thing that the Samaritan felt and were just filled with gratitude, but said nothing. Listen, when you read verse 17, can't you hear the disappointment, the sadness in Jesus' voice? Were not 10 cleansed? You can almost see him looking over his shoulder. Where are the 9? Where are they? I healed 10. Where are they? I don't want Jesus to think I'm ungrateful because I have failed to thank him for all that he's done for me in my life. And listen, we don't want each other to feel that same kind of disappointment of wondering if we were not appreciative of the relationship that we have because we're not expressing it, because we're not thanking each other. And listen, that's such a simple fix. It's a simple way to express and to measure our gratitude simply by expressing it and complete that cycle of grace and gratitude. The other thing, and I just said that without pushing it forward, the other single thing is apparently this is important in this story, is you go back to the one who helped you. You go back to the person who helped you move forward. Jesus gave this person a new life. He gave him the opportunity to move forward from a person who was previously as good as dead and was considered by the community as dead because he's separated completely from them, and took him from a life that was, pardon the pun, a dead end, and opened it up so that he could go forward. And so this Samaritan returned and thanked him. I will tell you, we can do the same thing. Who in your life in the past maybe who's the one that brought you to the Lord? Who's the one that taught you? Who's the one that shared Jesus Christ with you? If they're still around, phone them, text them, email them. In some way, just out of the blue, say, I just want to thank you for what you've done for me and for how you've changed my life and brought me to the Lord. I will tell you that you will make their day. So the challenge this week is taken from Romans chapter 12 and verse 10, where Paul said, love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. And I'll tell you, one of the best ways in which you can show honor to someone else is express your gratitude to them. So show your honor by thanking them. Showing gratitude. So let's be the one here that goes back and goes out or opens up and expresses our gratitude. Let's not be the 9 who nobody knows where they went or what they were feeling because they just didn't express it. So, your challenge with your wristband this week is be thankful for one another and express your thanks. Express your thanks for things that probably you've been taking for granted. For services rendered that just happen all the time. You've let your appreciation of that kind of slide. Let them know. And if you need Jesus Christ, your gratitude for what he's done for you and his death on the cross can begin today by accepting the healing that he has for you, that he died to provide for you. And listen, as the song that we're about to sing says, there's nothing that can wash away your sins except the blood of Jesus Christ. And it can be applied to your life, to your soul, in being baptized, or if you're already a child of God, in praying and asking him to forgive you. If there's some way in which we can help you with that, please come forward while we stand and sing.